I'm Terra Rebick, and I'm Chief Counsel for Canada for the legal and tax business at Thomson Reuters. I'm responsible for all legal issues for both of those businesses in Canada. But prior to this, I spent 5.5 years as a sole general counsel for a professional services firm, and before that I was at two very large law firms in Toronto. One of the interesting things about the general counsel positions that I've had is that I am a legal department of one. I've been able to draw on global resources, but I am sort of the master of everything, and that makes practical law an incredibly good tool for me. How I use practical law is that whenever I'm in need of a little extra help, or I have to dig a bit deeper on an issue, or I want quick help with something like a negotiation, I can reach into that tool and look for advice, guidance, precedents, all right at my fingertips. So one story was I was negotiating a non-disclosure agreement, which I've done hundreds of times before, but there were a few really tricky points, and it turned out that the person I was negotiating with was not the small startup, but this somebody in the founder of the small startup's family, who happens to be one of the most senior lawyers in Toronto. And I continually was getting similar comments, and my usual techniques and tactics weren't necessarily working. So I went into practical law and I looked at one very specific issue, which is around an indemnity within the non-disclosure agreement, and I was able to pull out really, really good tips and negotiating points, and also market information. So what was market with respect to, in this case, indemnity clauses in non-disclosure agreements, and it was able to have a really good discussion. It wasn't a controversial negotiation by any means, but I was able to have a really good discussion with this lawyer at a very large firm, and come out with a really good outcome for Thomson Reuters. They are incredibly authoritative. I trust them implicitly. First of all, I work here and I know who's working on them. I sit next to the people who are working on the content, and they are exceptional lawyers, every one of them. They're dedicated, they're smart, they are as up to date as you can be on these topics. And so of course for me it is it's easy for me to understand their authoritativeness. I've also used them, so I know they're user-friendly. I've never come across anything in their use that I have questioned at all. I've never been questioned in using them by counsel. So no, I don't question the authoritativeness. And frankly, there are times when there just isn't a precedent that exists, or the precedent may be from a negotiated deal, meaning that you don't necessarily know that it's the neutral starting point, where with practical law you can go in and you can say, I want a document that is exactly fits my situation, whether I'm on one side of the deal or the other. The practical law materials and documents are very helpful because they give a lot of annotations, for one thing, so that you can really easily and clearly explain to a business person why something should be set up the way that it is. When you're working with other counsel, you can say, this is a practical law document. The clauses here are meant to be the most market and the most current, and so this is a great starting point for us. And hopefully, if the other person has practical law as well, the other lawyer, you know that you're starting from the same place and you're both very, very comfortable. So it can save time and energy getting to a point where you don't have to negotiate whose precedent you're using. You both have access to the same starting point and the same materials. Corporate counsel are pulled in so many different directions and are meant to be the master of so many things, especially if you are, especially if you control a large piece of corporate counsel's responsibilities. And so to have sort of an expert at your fingertips that you have confidence in is an incredible, it's an incredible gift almost, and something that, as I say, I didn't have in my previous role that I do have now, and I feel very fortunate to have that.